Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Just the other day I met some guy at a random event, and we happened to strike up a conversation. He asked me what I did for a living, and I told him I work kind of in politics. And the first question that he asked me was, do you like RFK Jr? And my response was, I like the guy. I could have a beer with RFK Jr, I could enjoy a nice day with RFK Jr, I could play golf with him and go out to dinner and drink some scotch, but I could never actually, in good conscience, support RFK Jr. politically. That's what I said. And the dude that I was interacting with, well, he seemed shocked. I don't know, maybe he got some RFK Jr. bro vibes from me. I'm not exactly sure how. I definitely don't present as a hippie. In the outside world, I'm not walking around barefoot. But apparently that's a shocking announcement, that I could never support somebody like RFK Jr. That's shocking. Well, it's really not, and I'll explain to you exactly why it's not. That's essentially the point of this video. This is why I believe RFK Jr. would be an absolute disaster as president. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright, so I'm going to preface this video by saying, again, I like RFK. I think he's an honest guy, but I have an issue with RFK, and that's his support of some of the most radical policies in the political realm. You might think that that's shocking, but what was it? Just last week or the week prior, RFK Jr. refused to come out publicly against late-term abortions in an interview with Ben Shapiro.
He got rolled by his bureaucrats.
I mean, I think that a lot of people who support President Trump, myself included, will believe that he got rolled by his own state.
Yeah,
and that's why 2020 was a disaster.
We need somebody in there who will not get rolled by their bureaucrats. This is what my uncle, when my uncle was president during the Cuban Missile Crisis, there were 13 people on the ex-comp committee who were, living at the White House, including my father, who got a cot at the White House, and we didn't see him for 13 days. He went granular, and then the last day, after the 13th day, this is the 13th most dangerous days in history. There are many times during that period that many of those people believe that they may wake up dead the next morning, because a nuclear exchange would wipe out the East Coast.
That's pretty bad. But then it gets even worse this week, as he's pressed by Patrick Bet-David, who asked him about gender reassignment surgery for minors.
What will you do as a president to get this nonsense out to prevent kids under the age of 18, with or without the consent of the father, to transition? You may even say that is an okay policy you're a part of that many families disagree with. One, what's your position on this, and what will you do as a president?
I mean, my position is that people should not be able to have access to those procedures, that minors shouldn't, without parental permission. And, I don't know enough about it, Patrick, to say that it should be completely illegal for
under 18?
No. Yeah, I just don't know enough. What I'm going to tell you, well, because I don't know.
But Robert, I mean,
I don't. You know what? I don't know enough. There may be some rare cases where it saves somebody's life. I don't know that. And I'm not going to tell you that I have an answer to a question that I have not.
But Robert, there's a big difference.
Just tell you this.
I just want to say that there's a big difference between those two things. One, saving somebody's life to transition and cut the dangling off. How are you saving that person's life? Some of these things, logically, they make no sense to parents. So parents are sitting there, because you're going to have to answer this for both parents on both sides.
There's conflicting values here, and one of the values is freedom. To do what you want with your own body and have the government tell you you can or you can't do that.
Who is protecting kids under the age of 18, though?
And that's the other, right? And that's why I say nobody can do it without their parents' permission. That's solid. And then I have to look at the drugs, the safety of the drugs, whether there's permanent damage from them. I just don't know. You're rolling your eyes like I shouldn't have. This is an obvious question.
Do you trust a 14-year-old driving a car? Without a driver's license?
Well,
do you trust a 13-year-old voting? What if a parent consents for the 13-year-old to vote? Should we be okay with that? Because a parent said it's okay. Should we trust a parent that?
13-year-old to vote.
I get that, but why should it be legal for somebody at 13 with parent consent to transition?
RFK Jr. takes the, excuse my harsh language here, but he takes the brain-dead libertarian stance, the same argument we heard from clowns like Chris Christie, that the state ought to get out of the way, and parents have the right, and as long as the parent consents, then the child should be able to proceed with the procedure. That, to me, is morally reprehensible. You know, that argument makes sense in certain cases for certain topics. On the issue of gender reassignment surgery for minors, never. My view is that the state must play a very important role in protecting children from predatory doctors and, in some cases, predatory parents or parents who might be foolish enough to fall for this complete nonsense, this morally reprehensible, horrific medical trend and social contagion that has infected the mind of so many susceptible young people. Well, RFK Jr. doesn't believe that. And look, that may make him consistent, but there's certain places where I draw the line. Irreversible gender reassignment surgery. We're talking about body mutilation. Yeah, that is somewhere where I certainly draw the line. You know, there's certain political, or let's call it policy litmus tests that RFK Jr. just fails time and time again. He falls for the radical activist stance, it seems like, over and over again. Here's a little compilation that I found online.
RFK Jr., you said voter ID was racist. Is that true?
Maybe. I didn't see it. You know, I had a lot of positions.
It's actually a comic book written by radical Democrat RFK Jr. Argues, among other things, that voter ID laws are, quote, I kid you not, racially rancid.
Red state people are more likely to murder you, to impregnate your teenage daughter, to commit a violent crime against you, to commit a non-violent crime against you, to watch Desperate Housewives on TV, to buy pornography, to buy, degenerate video games like Grand Theft Auto.
You've called for curbing, logging, oil drilling, fracking. You wanted to eliminate it. You called it a victory for democracy. You want to curb U.S. fossil fuel extraction. Keep it in the ground, you once tweeted. You want a ban on fossil fuel extraction, a ban on fracking.
They are contemptible human beings, and that, I wish that there were a law you could punish them under. I think the Green New Deal is, all of that stuff is important, it's good, we ought to be pursuing it. I believe that we should use market mechanisms like carbon taxes. There's going to be major disruptions, not just to humanity, but ultimately to civilization. And this is part of the cost.
That pretty much sums it up. Whenever there's a social, political trend, RFK Jr. is the first to spearhead it. He's the first to jump on that bandwagon. Supposedly because of one issue, because of his stance on civil liberties in relation to, let's call it, medical procedures, RFK Jr. appeals to all the right-wingers. But do you really think that one policy undoes his history of radical leftist activism? No limits on abortion, voter ID is racist, pro-New Green Deal, pro, let's call a spade, genital mutilation, and arguably one of the worst, and also pro-carbon tax. I mean, remove the one issue on civil liberties and medical procedures, and RFK Jr. is essentially Justin Trudeau, hardcore leftist. He's not just a leftist, he's a hardcore leftist, I'd argue. I mean, this guy actually came out publicly in support of a carbon tax. That's completely insane, especially in times of inflation. Here I am having to explain basic rudimentary economics, once again, the fundamentals, because apparently leftists just don't get it. When you put a tax on carbon, when you put a tax on energy, the cost of literally everything goes up. Because fossil fuels are not only used as an ingredient in a lot of the plastics and a lot of the products that we use, but fossil fuels are also, of course, the backbone of transportation and energy. That's what powers the planes and the trains and the boats that allow global shipping routes to even exist. Fossil fuels in most cases are what power the factories that produce the goods that we consume and use. They're what power the farms that grow our food. So if you start imposing taxes on the fuels, well then the cost of production for almost everything shoots through the roof. The economic consequences are dire. I think RFK Jr. is a cool guy, but I think he's a total ideologue, and I don't think he really lives in the real world, to be quite frank with you. He simply doesn't pass the litmus test. He's cool, I like the viral videos where he's doing push-ups, I like some of the things that he says, but this guy clearly can never be president. It would be an utter disaster. He's a Democrat, he's a leftist, he's a far leftist, he's a cool cult figure, but he doesn't belong anywhere near the levers of power. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.